The House released a treasure trove of Epstein information, and mainstream media has reported on some of the most salacious materials. But with 53,000 documents available, what else is in there?
Political bear nation ready to dive, where opinions spark and the debates thrive. Hold on tight.
Hey guys, I'm Bound Chubby Bear, and this is Political Bear Nation. This is the third video I've done on Jeffrey Epstein, and this one is about the documents that have been released by the House Oversight Committee. Before I begin, I need to explain that the federal government still has a vast amount of information about Jeffrey Epstein, and evidence inventory lists confirm that he had an enterprise-style setup for security cameras, recording, and remote monitoring, along with a dedicated server made by Ubiquiti. If you're a nerd like me, you know that Ubiquiti is known for quality, powerful network hardware, and their biggest claim to fame is a unified network ecosystem, which is the same system that Epstein had in his home. He also had lots of low-tech items like digital voice recorders from Olympus, Sony, and Radio Shack, not to mention various cameras and video equipment. He also had dozens of data CDs and USB sticks containing images and videos of his victims and potentially of other abusers and enablers. There's just a ton of information that the Department of Justice is holding on to. Now, you've probably heard some of the emails that were released, like the 2017 email where Epstein tells Larry Summers, former Secretary of the Treasury under Bill Clinton and former president of Harvard University, that I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Or the 2011 email where Epstein tells Ghislaine Maxwell that, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. We also learned that Michael Wolff, a writer, reporter, and columnist who wrote a book called Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House, provided advice to Epstein on essentially how to blackmail Donald Trump. And in 2016, when Reuters was going to report on the lawsuit by Katie Johnson, who claimed Trump and Epstein abused her, Wolff made light of the accusations, saying, well, I guess if there's anybody who can wave this away, it's Donald. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Why was he offering this much support to a convicted predator instead of defending the victims of Jeffrey's abuse? By the way, I talked about the Katie Johnson lawsuit in the first Epstein video I did, so I'll link to it at the end of this video so you can get up to speed if you're unfamiliar with that case. Additionally, the Washington Post matched up a video of Stacey Plaskett, a delegate from the United States Virgin Islands, questioning Michael Cohen during a 2019 congressional hearing, while receiving real-time direction from Jeffrey Epstein himself about what to say in order to uncover information about Donald Trump. He's literally watching her on live TV and starts asking her, are you chewing? And then she replies, not anymore. And then he texts, Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of secrets. And then Stacey Plaskett texts back with Rona, followed by question marks. She follows up with another text message since she didn't receive a response from him and says, quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? And Jeffrey texts back and says, that's his assistant. Epstein was referring to Rona Graff.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So, Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
You got it. Quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
As Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's?
Rona Graff is the Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his.
And just as you saw in that video, he literally responds with good work. We even have text messages of Epstein telling someone else, it's wild because I'm the one able to take him down. When you put this information together, it's clear Epstein was indeed trying to destroy Donald Trump, and he had the information to do so. But there was so much data released by the House that I wanted to investigate it even further. So here are some of my findings and context that you probably haven't heard from mainstream media. The first thing that popped out to me was this prescription bottle from B&H Hospital, or Bangkok Nursing Home, which was prescribed to Jean-Luc Brunel. It was for Rivotril. Now, Rivotril, clonazepam, is a medicine used to treat anxiety disorders, panic attacks, seizures, and insomnia. However, it is also commonly used to incapacitate victims in sexual assault cases as well. In case you're not familiar with Jean-Luc Brunel, here's a quick breakdown. Brunel was a model scout and began his career in the late 1970s with the company Karen Models, and they were based in Paris. He discovered models like Christy Turlington and Sharon Stone, who later became an incredibly popular actress. In the 1980s, Jean-Luc Brunel met Ghislaine Maxwell, and she introduced him to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein gave Brunel $1 million to start MC2 Model Management, and then Brunel used that money to open offices in New York City and Miami. He worked alongside big brands like Nordstrom, Macy's, and Saks Fifth Avenue. Virginia Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's most public-facing victims and accusers, alleged that Jean-Luc Brunel and Jeffrey Epstein used MC2 Model Management to traffic young girls. She identified Jean-Luc Brunel as one of the men Maxwell made her sleep with. Brunel's crimes wasn't something that was just uncovered overnight. There was a long history of really good reporting, but unfortunately, it did not lead to any criminal charges for a very long time. Back in October of 1988, Diane Sawyer reported the experiences of several models who claimed they were routinely drugged and abused on an episode of 60 Minutes. In November of 1999, BBC One broadcasted a report by Donald McIntyre, which detailed the abuse in the European fashion industry and worked with undercover journalist Lisa Brinkworth, who posed as a young model and uncovered that drugs were used to facilitate that abuse. But the company, Elite Models, sued the BBC for selective editing and illegally making certain recordings. No legal action was taken against Brunel for his crimes. But the company, Karen Models, banned Jean-Luc Brunel, and that's when he relocated to the United States, met Ghislaine Maxwell, and got his modeling agency funded by Jeffrey Epstein. We have evidence that shows that Brunel flew on Epstein's jet over 25 times, and Epstein bragged to victims like Virginia Giuffre that he had slept with over 1,000 of Brunel's girls. Brunel also had a relationship with Les Wexner. Les Wexner is the billionaire founder of Ella Brands, which owns Victoria's Secret. Victoria's Secret continued to work with MC2 models even after Epstein was arrested by the Palm Beach County Police in 2008. In fact, Les Wexner and Victoria's Secret continued to work with MC2 models all the way up to 2018. I actually break down Wexner's relationship with Epstein in the first Epstein video that I did, so go ahead and check that out if you missed it. Jean-Luc Brunel was finally arrested in France in December 2020, just as he was about to flee to Senegal to avoid prosecution. The French investigated him once the allegations against Epstein were re-examined because of Julie K. Brown's reporting that was published by the Miami Herald. Jean-Luc Brunel was found hung in his cell at the age of 76, just like Epstein was found in his cell 16 months earlier. Another thing that caught my eye were emails that were sent back and forth between Epstein and Kathy Rumler. Kathy was President Barack Obama's White House counsel from 2011 to 2014, and she maintained a professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein during her White House tenure and continued meeting him for years after leaving office. Keep in mind, this was after Epstein's initial arrest and conviction of soliciting a minor. So why did she maintain a relationship with Epstein? Contacts. Epstein offered to introduce her to Bill Gates, and between 2014 and 2017, she met with Epstein dozens of times. She was a partner at Latham & Watkins and co-chair of its white-collar defense group. She later left Latham & Watkins to work for Goldman Sachs. Kathy was even listed as a backup executor in an early 2019 version of Jeffrey Epstein's will. So while she tries to minimize the relationship between them, clearly Jeffrey thought highly of her and their relationship. She is now on the board of FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. It is one of the largest independent regulators for securities firms doing business in the United States. In the newest released emails, Kathy sent Epstein a New York Times article which makes the case for Trump's impeachment and the illegal failure by Trump to disclose the payments made to Stormy Daniels. She labels it as a story that he would find interesting. Epstein replies that he knows how dirty Donald is and that people don't know how dangerous it is for Trump to have his fixer, Michael Cohen, flip on him. Again, this makes it clear that Epstein wanted to hurt Donald Trump, and the people that knew Epstein knew he wanted to hurt Donald Trump too. Why does this all matter? Well, conspiracy theorists believe that Donald Trump had something to do with the circumstances surrounding Epstein's death. If you're Epstein and you're sitting in jail now for the second time for committing heinous crimes against children, knowing you will likely spend the rest of your life in jail, you would probably spill your guts to lower your sentence. And you would also probably provide information to the federal government about someone that you desperately hate. So conspiracy theorists pose the question, what lengths would Donald go to stop Epstein from talking?
That's crazy. I don't even know what the answer to. I don't even know what that even means.
One of the things that kept disturbing me as I read these files was that people that weren't even involved in any of the abuse that went on still maintained a polite and civil relationship with a convicted child predator. That includes people like Kathy and even Bill Gates. Now, I broke down how Jeffrey Epstein made his money in the very first episode about him, and you really should watch that if you want to know how he got rich. But from these emails, it seems people continued to be polite and even defend him and work with him because he was a facilitator. In 2017, we see an email from Michael Wolff, and he's asking Epstein to introduce him to Kathy and Tom Barrack. Now, Tom Barrack is a pretty interesting guy, to say the least. He used to be one of Richard Nixon's personal attorneys. He worked for multiple members of the Saudi royal family, and he worked as a deputy undersecretary of the United States Department of Interior during the Ronald Reagan administration. He has over $200 million invested in Middle Eastern real estate, and he used to own Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. He also founded Colony Capital, which manages $25 billion of assets with significant holdings in the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, which is the sovereign wealth fund in the United Arab Emirates. Keep in mind the Trump Organization recently announced the construction of Trump International Hotel and Tower in Dubai, the Trump World Golf Club in Dubai, along with another $5.5 billion Trump-branded resort, Trump Tower in Jeddah, and Trump Resort in Oman. All of these are projects that are at least partially funded by the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund. And I'm not even talking about the over $100 million that have been invested by Abu Dhabi corporations to Trump's cryptocurrency products. But getting back to Tom Barrack, he also bought $70 million of Jared Kushner's debt on 666 Fifth Avenue to help Kushner avoid bankruptcy at the direct request of Donald Trump. And Tom is also a billionaire himself, with an estimated net worth of $1.1 billion. Now, he's also a huge Donald Trump financial supporter. He gave $415,000 to Trump Victory, a fundraising committee in 2016. He gave $460,000 to Trump's 2020 re-election campaign and $68,000 to Trump's 2024 campaign. He also helped fundraise $32 million through Rebuilding America Now, a 2016 super PAC. He served as chairman of Trump's inaugural committee and raised $107 million for Trump's inauguration, the most ever of any president in American history. And he now serves as the ambassador to Turkey under the Trump administration. Jeffrey Epstein was a human Rolodex, and as I kept reading through all of this information, the connections just got weirder and weirder. Epstein was apparently friends with Deepak Chopra. This is the guy that was all about holistic medicine and being good and the whole New Age movement in the 90s. He wrote Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, the quantum alternative to growing old in 1993. He sold completely useless herbal supplements, massage oils, books, videos, and courses, raking in over $20 million a year. Yet he was emailing Epstein in 2017 talking about quantum entanglement in brains and how crazy Donald Trump sounded when he made baseless claims about being illegally wiretapped. Epstein even told Deepak about the Katie Johnson case, where he and Trump were collectively sued for sexual assault. Deepak asked, "Did she also drop the civil case against you?" And when Epstein responded, "Yup," Deepak wrote back, "Good." Mind you, this was years and years after Epstein was already convicted of soliciting a minor. Now, we know that Steve Bannon was in the process of helping Jeffrey Epstein rehabilitate his image, and there are at least 15 hours of unreleased footage that Steve has refused to release.
But the future is for the way women think.
The way women think. That's correct. Is that not a sop because of all the depravity you've done against young women? Your new sop is that their women's thinking is the future?
No, I've always believed that women would be able to take over. I'm a firm believer and supporter of Time's Up.
But what we didn't know was that Bannon was in communication with Epstein about the far-right movement in Europe. Politicians like Matteo Salvini, Viktor Orban, Marine Le Pen, and Nigel Farage all had similar right-wing anti-immigrant views, just like Steve Bannon, which Epstein called the Ninth Circle, referencing the lowest circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. Epstein told Steve that if he wants to influence Europe, he has to go there. He can't influence them remotely. Epstein even offered to help organize one-on-one meetings with these world leaders, but Steve would need to stay for about 8 to 10 days, and Bannon agreed with Epstein's suggestion. Epstein was a human Rolodex. Another connection was the Farkas family, specifically Jonathan Farkas. Jonathan said, "Hi, Jeffrey. I hope all is well. I think you're going to have a wonderful life from now on. In your opinion, how much is left in this market? It's been a Trump triumph. I gave him some money through Woody." Now, let me break down this email. Jonathan Farkas is part of a massive real estate empire, but he keeps a pretty low profile. His grandfather, George Farkas, founded Alexander's department store in 1928, and at the time, it was incredibly popular, especially in the Bronx. It is now a real estate investment trust that owns 7 buildings in New York, including the headquarters of Bloomberg. Jonathan's father became CEO of Alexander's in the 1980s and passed that wealth on to his children. Today, Jonathan Farkas is a managing director at Starwood Capital Group, but he used to work at Colony Capital, the same organization that Tom Barrack started. Now, the Farkas family is ultra rich. Andrew L. Farkas is a billionaire real estate mogul and founded Insignia Financial Group. They merged with CBRE in 2003, and anyone that has ever lived in New York knows about them. They are one of the big 4 real estate companies in New York and are worth over $45 billion. So that explains the Farkas family. So who's Woody? Woody is Robert Wood Johnson IV, the owner of the New York Jets. He's a billionaire heir to the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical fortune and a major Trump donor and fundraiser. Side note, Jets fans are actually rejoicing that his name is in the Epstein files because the team has been so bad for so long that they hope he is forced to sell the team. But I digress. Here's a bit more on Jonathan. In a 2017 email, Jonathan writes, "I'm seeing Heidi a little bit. I don't think it will turn into a romance. I'm a bit old and not tall enough, but she seems intelligent and kind. Summers got an appointment from Trump. She is on the White House Fellowship Commission. It came through Woody and Suzanne Johnson because she bundled." So what Jonathan is admitting here is that Woody and Suzanne were major donors to Donald Trump, and they influenced Donald Trump's decision about the ambassadorship, but also that Summer Farkas, Jonathan's wife, became the U.S. ambassador to Malta because she was a bundler. A bundler is someone that basically fundraises and collects lots of donations from many different people and bundles them together for a candidate. Additionally, through her rich husband, she gave $300,000 to Donald Trump's campaign and other Republican Party members and ended up being confirmed as the ambassador to Malta. She had no qualifications other than being a New York socialite that frequently donated to the New York Police Department and the New York Fire Department. I'm not even going to get into the fact that Jonathan had been married to his wife for like 12 or even 15 years at that point, and he's talking to Epstein about another woman, but he literally just admitted that his wife got the ambassadorship because she gave Trump lots of money. Interestingly enough, this is new for the Farkas family. Ruth Farkas, Jonathan's mother, donated exactly $300,000 to Nixon's 1972 re-election campaign, and in return, she got the ambassadorship to Luxembourg. That was all revealed during the Watergate hearings. She too was a socialite and a philanthropist in New York, and they both gave exactly $300,000 to a presidential candidate so they could become ambassador to a place they wanted to go. I guess some things never change. Epstein was also in constant communication with Landon Thomas, a financial reporter for the New York Times from 2002 through 2019. Before that, Landon used to work for Morgan Stanley, specifically on investments in Turkey, Pakistan, and the Middle East. Most of the communication centered around financial news, but on one occasion, Epstein offered to give him pictures taken in his kitchen of Donald Trump surrounded by girls in bikinis. Again, proving that Epstein really wanted to take down Donald Trump. Epstein also had knowledge of Don McGahn wanting to resign all the way back in January of 2018, but Trump stopped him, and he knew that. Don McGahn was Trump's White House counsel for a very short period of time. He ended up leaving in October after he felt that Trump wanted him to take the fall for decisions that could be construed as obstruction of justice, like the firing of James Comey. In Robert Mueller's report, McGahn complained to White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus that Trump was trying to get him to, and I quote, "do crazy shit." McGahn was actually the most cited witness in the Mueller report, and because of this, the House Judiciary Committee subpoenaed him, which he refused, so we never got to hear from Don McGahn. But Epstein knew he was unhappy long before the rest of us did. He was still connected. He had his sources in the White House. I spent hours and hours pouring through this data, and I constantly found people just ignoring the heinous crimes that Jeffrey committed. So many people knew what he did and either didn't want to believe it or just didn't care. Whether it was Paul Krasner, Deepak Chopra, Larry Summers, or Bill Gates, they just did not care. Epstein was a human Rolodex. He was a facilitator. He was incredibly rich, and he understood how to keep governments from taxing the filthy rich. So people just looked the other way. It was disgusting, but even with all the information that we currently have right now, keep in mind the Department of Justice has so much more. We have to stop protecting the abusers, the enablers, and the people that just look the other way. Release the Epstein files. Thanks for watching, and check out the other two videos that I'm Jeffrey Epstein. Think you might be surprised.
Hold on tight, it's a passion